Patrons of Tumbler House unite.
You have nothing to lose but your minds,
It-
or something.
it's another time. It's time for another pre-show.
It is. And look, they're filing in Lenten garb. All of them wearing purple, violet. They're all dressed for Lent.
That's as it should be. No.
Well, yeah, but they were singing the Miserere before they came into the studio. I think that's a little odd.
Why
I
is
mean,
that odd?
devout. Well, it's all right. It's not odd. It's certainly devout. Very, very publicly devout. I'm not against public devotion. All right, fine. Sing the Miserere. I don't care. Do as you like. Listen, you guys are patrons. You do whatever you want. We're all in favor of it.
Oh man, Charles and I are really gunned up today. We're just having so much fun. You patrons sent so many fun comments over the pizza stuff, and we were kind of prepping to go over them. So we're really gunned up today.
It's true, and I got to say, ladies and gentlemen, you really capture the spirit of the show. And I firstly, I want you all to know, I absolutely laud the kind of local patriotism that you guys show. I think it's wonderful. I don't care where you come from. If you come from Bug Tussle, you stand up for it. As far as you're concerned, Bug Tussle, Tennessee is the greatest city in the world. Jed Clampett came from there.
Yeah. I have no
Well,
idea
or contrariwise. I mean, if you come from some urban dump, I'm off of the old 6th Ward. Yeah, as you should be. And I'm not actually choking. Do be proud wherever you're from, whatever it is. And be proud of wherever you live if it's not where you're from. Because you came from the one place and you settled in the other, due ultimately to the choice of God. So be proud of where you live. Explore it, get to know it, get to love it.
Right on. So I was debating on reading some of the comments because we have so many on the pre-show, but I'm gonna push them to all the full episode so everyone can enjoy them. Comments from Don, Connor, Andrew, and the big one from Daniel. So look forward to that one.
You bet.
Yeah.
And I will just say, and I'll probably have to repeat myself during the real show, so don't get too bored. But I'd like to make fun of the Midwest as flyover country. But I'll tell you a terrible truth. I have driven through it extensively. And yes, I do like the Midwest. I like the South. There is no part of our beloved country I actually dislike, which is why the State of the Week segment is something I enjoy doing. Because I like being able to talk about what's good and great and enjoyable and fun and wonderful in each of our 50 states.
Good. All right. I will read one comment because it actually pertained to last week's pre-show from Covington. He says, "Never thought I'd hear Charles make a Key and Peele reference, but yet here we are." And so I had asked Charles. I was like, "What is he talking about?" Because I know Key and Peele, but I didn't get it. And it's the Balake, I guess.
Yes, it's the Balake quote. I love Key and Peele. I don't care who knows it. They're very funny. They're enjoyable. I like them and tough.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah. Charles is a huge fan. He has showed me. I saw the one that you're referring to. I just wasn't able to make the connection because my wife is a teacher, so that killed her. The teacher reading off people's names. But the other one that I really liked a lot was the Magic Negro battle.
The Magic Negro battle is classic.
Yeah.
It really is classic. And I gotta say, find your own troubled white boy. I really have to say that the Magic Negro one was really superb, especially if you're a Stephen King fan.
Yeah, yeah.
Because King really goes in for the Magic Negro and does a good job with it, by the way. You know who probably the first Magic Negro was?
What is the person from The Stand? I don't know.
No, before the Stand. Remember, it predates Stephen King, obviously. The Magic Negro is a long-standing trope in American literature.
I can't guess.
I would say it's a question either Jim in Huckleberry Finn
I was gonna say that, yeah.
or Uncle Remus.
I mean, was Jim sort of like? Did he have all the answers though? I mean,
No, but he had a lot of them, and he was obviously a mentor figure for Huck.
hmm, that's true.
I mean, Huck loved Jim.
No.
You know, and this is the area. You know, it's kind of like when Zora Neale Hurston wrote Seraph on the Swanee, and people were upset because all the characters were white.
Yeah.
You know, what right did a negress have writing about white people? And by the way, that came from both sides
Hmm.
because obviously, you know, on the one side, whites were upset that a black woman would dare to do this. Blacks were upset for the opposite reason, that a black woman would dare to do this.
Hmm.
But of course, the fact that she wrote about white characters, and
Yeah.
I think there are a couple of black characters, but they're very minor. They don't really play much of a role. Um, it simply shows what kind of an artist she was. Because unless you want to say that no novelist has any right to write about any character that isn't like his own people, you can say that if you want, and you're a moron. But that's okay. Moronism is big today. Mm, mm. Morons of the world unite. You're already in charge.
All right. Um.
Not
Okay.
that I'm bitter.
Not that you're bitter.
I'm not bitter. I have to keep telling myself that like a mantra. I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter. Every day and every way, we're getting better and better.
That's right. All right.
Can't say that with a straight face. Go ahead.
First question is from Cal, who says, "Could Charles please summarize the history of the Western Rite Orthodoxy, the Eastern Orthodox churches which draw upon Western church traditions? Would these churches be Orthodoxy's equivalent to an Eastern Catholic church, such as the Melkites, or something else entirely?"
Well, yes and no, no and yes. They started in the 19th century, actually, with a fellow named Overbeck, who I believe he was German, but he got his start in England. And again, I could be wrong because I'm doing this off the top of my head. But Overbeck prepared a version of the Latin Mass that would be accessible to Orthodox. Um, it had a much more elaborate, I mean, obviously there were no prayers for the Pope. It had a much more elaborate epiclesis, that is the invocation of the Holy Ghost on the gifts. Um, and of course, he removed the filioque from the creed. Uh, and he got a few followers, but it didn't last long. He was the first who really tried to come up with a Western Orthodox deal. Um, the real rise of Western Orthodoxy per se, in my estimation, actually comes with the period starting in the 1970s when the Episcopal Church went crazy and they ordained women, and they just a number of Anglo-Catholics who remember that one of the big mainstays of Anglo-Catholicism was the so-called branch theory, whereby Catholicism, Eastern Orthodoxy, and Anglicanism were considered to be the three major branches, alongside Old Catholicism and a few others, of the so-called one holy Catholic Church. This, which was sort of invisibly united, even though, well, obviously so. The problem with the ordination of women for many folk of this sort is that, of course, it destroyed Anglicanism's claim to be an apostolic church. So what do you do? Well, there were many different answers to what do you do. Uh, one of them ultimately ending up in the ordinariate. But some few members of the Episcopal Church uh, gravitated toward Orthodoxy, specifically the Antiochian Orthodox Church. That is to say, the Greek Orthodox Church of Syria, who were the most welcoming of these guys. Eventually, you had some disaffected Roman Catholics, disaffected for various reasons, become Orthodox. And Rokor, the Russian Orthodox Church outside Russia, opened up a thing for them. And you had crossovers on either side. In other words, you ended up with Latin Catholics with the Antiochians and Anglo-Catholics going to Rokor. So you had both. And these are collectively the Western Rite Orthodox. They are, in a certain sense, a bit like the Uniates, but the difference is that with the different Uniate rites, you had entire dioceses, bishops, and so forth coming over to reunite with Rome. There was a history there. Whereas the Western Orthodox groups have been sort of constructed out of whole cloth. And the other thing too, I mean, their position within Orthodoxy varies considerably according to the group that they're with. Some of the Orthodox churches take their Western Rite people very seriously. Some of them don't, and see it purely as a way to transition them into pure Byzantine stuff. You know, I know people who are involved with Western Rite Orthodoxy. They're very sincere people, and all that. Obviously, I don't agree with them. I'd be one myself, but I can say that of any non-Catholic group. If there was any non-Catholic group I agreed with wholeheartedly, I'd be a member of it.
Yeah.
But I can certainly see the appeal. You know, and to be honest with you, the best advertisement for Western Rite Orthodoxy has been the Holy Father. He's sort of the poster child.
Yep. Okay. Next question is from someone with the moniker Best Western Ever.
Wow, I've been to several Best Western hotels that claim to be the best Western ever.
Yeah.
And then I've seen several movies that were claimed to be the best Western ever. Of course, Gone West used to be a euphemism for died.
Okay.
But it also was a direct saying for people who left the East and went out to California or Texas or wherever to make their fortunes.
What's your all-time favorite Western?
High Noon.
Wow. Okay. Huh. Interesting.
Well, what's yours?
I mean, I would say mine's typical. I'm actually a really big Western aficionado. I would say mine's really typical in that both my dad and I really enjoyed the good, the bad, and the ugly. Sort of the dynamic with Tuco, the ugly one, and Clint Eastwood. It's just sort of an antagonistic partnership that it was amusing. But and Van Cleef was good too. So I like the spaghetti westerns a lot.
There's no cultural or ethnic reason for that, is there?
Oh.
I'm
No,
just asking.
I mean, no. Objectively, I feel spaghetti westerns are the best.
They're truer to the Old West than the American westerns. I get it.
Yeah.
No, so Leone was more of a Westerner than John Ford. Yeah, okay. Makes sense. He was from what, Western Italy, Tuscany or somewhere, wasn't he? You've heard about the English Western?
What about it?
It's called Teabags on the Trail. No, it's true. It's set in the west of England, and this stagecoach is attacked by a group of Indians. You know what they're called?
What?
The Fish and Chippewas.
Oh, okay.
What? You never heard of them?
Wow. All right. Wow. Okay, so back to our question. Wait, we really got sidetracked.
I guess so. All right.
Okay. Hello, Charles and Vincent. I belong to St. Clement Parish in beautiful Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, which has the distinction of being, if I am not mistaken, the first Indult parish in the world following Vatican II. Would you please speak to the significance and influence, if any, that our parish has had to and upon the greater traditional movement in the world?
Well, I can actually. First, I've been to St. Clement a couple of times. Despite the scumbag prime minister, Ottawa is a beautiful city. I've been to Rideau Hall, which is the government house, the residence of the Governor General, Her Majesty's representative for her Dominion of Canada. Uh, the Basilica of Notre Dame, the Basilica of St. Patrick. It's Ottawa is a town I really, really, really like. And oh gosh, the Chateau Laurier, I guess, is the big Canadian Pacific hotel in town. And I really like Ottawa. It's a lovely place. Plus, it's very fortunate because it's just across the river from Hull, which is part of Quebec, of course.
Yes.
Ottawa has a much nicer name than it was founded with. It was originally called Bytown. Yeah,
Interesting.
but Queen Victoria selected the site as the capital for the new Dominion, and they figured they needed a more dignified, appropriate name. And the Ottawa River was there, the Ottawa Indians, so Ottawa made sense. Anyway, but I knew Father Ashley, who was connected with the abortive oratory of Ottawa, which had St. Clement's for quite a while. You're quite right. I do believe it is the very first post-conciliar Latin Mass parish under diocesan auspices. And it survived the unfortunate occurrences around the oratory, which was a real sad deal. And then it went to the Fraternity of St. Peter, who've operated ever since. And there've been a lot of liturgical and musical mavens to come out of that place and spread their expertise around the world. Gosh, it's been too. I think the last time I was in Ottawa was probably '97.
This is a
I
long
think
time
that's
ago.
right. It's a very long time ago. It doesn't seem like it was about a year after my father died. Boy, that time has gone by quickly.
Hmm.
Uh, but no, St. Clement, we all owe a debt of gratitude to St. Clement's, Ottawa. It was the prototype for the many, many Latin Mass communities around the world, which have, as I've often said before, epitomized in their own lives what the early liturgical movement was actually trying to achieve. So, hats off to St. Clement's, hats off to Ottawa.
All right. Adam says, Dear Vincent and Charles, as a new patron, I want to thank you for your work and encourage all viewers to support you with prayer and money.
Thank you.
Hear, hear. Also, I'd like to ask a few questions. Firstly, could Charles talk about genocide in Belgian Congo and King Leopold's involvement in it? Is he really responsible for this horror, or is anti monarchist propaganda demonizing him? Please give some context.
Well, basically, what happened was this. In the race for Africa, the French gobbled up what they could, the English gobbled up what they could, but the Congo Basin was not actually uh, penetrated by colonizers. Instead, it became a uh, a large part of it became a marketplace for the Arab slavers on the east coast of Africa. Uh, I mean, the missionaries came down in the wake of Stanley and Livingstone, and they made a lot of converts in different places, which is why the Congo today is primarily Catholic. But these people were constantly being attacked. It's one reason. It's one of my favorite papal Zouave stories. Cardinal de Vigerie of Algeria recruited Colonel Joubert, late of the Papal Zouaves, to go down to the Congo and train the White Fathers' converts to defend themselves, to fight off the Arab slavers. And he did a very, very good job. Nevertheless, the fact remained that the area that's now the Congo was just modernity came rushing in, and the locals had nothing going for them. Let's put it that way. And people, if you had money and guns, you'd carve out a territory for yourself and pull out rubber or whatever you wanted in the western area. And then if you were an Arab and you were into the slave trade, the eastern area was your happy hunting ground. So the International Convention for the Suppression of Slavery held a convention in the 1880s. And what they did was they constituted that central part of Africa as the Congo Free State. And they appointed King Leopold II, who had been very active in the suppression of the slave trade in terms of funding it, to be the first president of the Congo Free State. Well, herein lies the story. He, in turn, gave patents to various people to exploit the natural resources of the Congo, whether it was rubber or diamonds or whatever it was. Rubber was particularly big. But it's not like he had money to establish a working government. He didn't. So the result was a sort of free-for-all. He, of course, needed money to do anything with the Congo, and he had none. Because he was the king of the Belgians. He didn't have a huge personal fortune. So he did what he could to try to administer the Congo, and it was a mess. And it was so bad that finally in 1908, the Belgian government, with the agreement of the powers, basically took over management of the Congo. So it went from being the Congo Free State to becoming the Belgian Congo. But and that's kind of an interesting thing because it's a huge country. And you might wonder, how did the Belgians end up taking it over? Well, it was really almost by accident, because it's not like Belgium was a big seafaring country or anything like that. They weren't. And King Leopold had looked for other territories that Belgium might possibly expand into, but the Congo was it. And to be fair, the Belgian administration reformed a lot of the excesses relatively quickly. But remember, you're talking about a very difficult area. There's no the tribes that lived there were, shall we say, extremely nasty to each other. You even had a few cannibal tribes in the Congo. So, that you may remember Joseph Conrad's novel, The Heart of Darkness, that later turned into the movie. Oh
Apocalypse
gosh,
Now.
thank you. But it was set in the Congo.
Yeah.
And it was very easy for people to lose all sense of everything in the Congo, and some people did. It really was a mess. How far was Leopold responsible? Well, I think, all things considered, on the one hand, his crimes were more of omission than commission. And on the other, it would be very difficult to see, unless you had a lot more in the way of resources and you were willing to invest them in the Congo, how he could have done otherwise. I mean, and again, the reason why the whole Congo Free State thing was done in the beginning was because it was such a mess down there. And the only thing they really could see was, let's suppress the slave trade. Let's get that out of the way, which they did. That was the effective end. The Congo Free State was the effective end of the Arab slave trade in East Africa. That and the British taking over Zanzibar. I mean, people forget it was the colonial powers that ended the slave trade. It's not that the slavers suddenly got consciences and said, we've been doing a bad thing. I guess we should go home and raise coconuts. That's not how it happened. But we don't remember, Dad, because we're so wonderful and good. We kill babies. We don't steal slaves.
Okay, Adam has another question. He says, while I agree with Charles that what is happening in Ukraine is partially the fault of Western powers and their policy towards Russia, I would like to point out that Eastern European countries joined NATO out of fear of Russian imperialism and aggression. Invasions of Chechnya, Georgia, and Ukraine proved their fears correct. If Ukraine falls, Poland, my country, will be on the frontier and in danger. I believe that Russia must be soundly defeated and humiliated to be stopped from trying to restore their oppressive empire. I understand that this scenario would bring negative consequences, but right now we have only bad options and possible outcomes, precisely because of United States, German, and French mismanagement. I would love to see reconciliation between Russia and Eastern European countries, but until Russians accept the fact that they would not have their empire anymore, they aren't willing to do so. What's Charles's opinion on this matter? I'm trying to be reasonable and think like a Catholic should, but I also love my country and see injustices Russia has done on my people and other Slavs. In Poland, we are known from painful experiences that only a solid punch can make them understand that they have to stop and leave us alone. God bless Ukraine. Thank you for your time, and God bless you both.
I really can't disagree with you. I mean, especially the lack of pleasant options. I mean, as I mentioned last time, I've done a very little bit, to help the Ukrainian cause here. My heart goes out certainly not just to Ukraine. It also goes out to the Russians who are being killed in a needless conflict. I don't know how true the accounts are, but apparently a lot of them, if we can believe what we're told, a lot of them had no idea that they were actually going to war. I don't know how true that is. I don't, what's real and what's Memorex. I think it's been attributed to several different people, including Winston Churchill. But whoever said it is very true, that the first casualty of war is always the truth. But the fact remains that Russia, or at least its leadership, will have to learn to live with its neighboring countries. And there have been times when she has. I'm thinking particularly of Alexander I, who loved the Poles. He unfortunately his legacy was Russian domination of Poland, but it wasn't like that while he was alive. He took his responsibilities as King of Poland separate from Tsar of Russia very seriously. His son did not. And of course, the result we know is the Revolution of 1831, which oddly enough, because of the support for Poland amongst Ukrainian and Belarusian Catholics, resulted, amongst other things, in Tsar Nicholas I's suppression of the Eastern Catholic Church in his parts of Ukraine and Belarus, so that it only survived in Austrian Galicia. What can I tell you, Adam? You're right. There are no pleasant outcomes. And a fatal weakening of Russia, a destabilization of Russia, would result in all sorts of other problems that wouldn't be any fun. I mean, what can I tell you? You know, we have to look first to Christ the King and then to Blessed Emperor Karl. And certainly to Our Lady of Czestochowa and Pochev, both of which images, incidentally, are venerated by both Catholics and Orthodox, and St. Nicholas, and Constantine the Great, Constantine the 11th, Blessed Constantine the 11th. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Final question for the pre-show is from Superfan Ann. She says, "Hi Vincent. Here's a question for Charles. Let's say I just won the Powerball 99 million jackpot. Now I'm a Catholic with oodles of money. What are the first 3 things Charles would advise me to do to make the world a better place? Thanks."
Well, of course, leaving aside the obvious, which is to go on a round the world tour with me going with you and determining the itinerary, which would be, I mean, obviously the best thing for anybody in the world. Leaving that aside, I would say there are 3 things. You've got all the money to spend. The first would be to offer the Holy Father an enormous amount of money, contingent upon the withdrawal of trash can custodians and the following legislation. That would be that. The second would be heavy, heavy donations to the FSSP, Christ the King, the Ordinariate, various Eastern Catholic churches, different oratories. In other words, toss money at those working on the solution as opposed to those who are the problem. Although you've got to pay off the problem children if you want them to, The third, I would say, would be to do something in terms of endowing Catholic secondary academies and colleges of the right persuasion. Dumping money on those that already exist and starting new ones.
Aren't you forgetting somebody?
Oh well, that goes with number 2 as well. Obviously, you'd want to make a huge donation to Tumbler House.
There we go. Okay, good.
So that the Tower B could be built.
Yeah, Tower B. Yep.
I've seen the plans, by the way, the blueprints and so on. I noticed there's no 13th floor in Tower B.
No, not according to the schematics.
Of course, there isn't one for Tower A either. So that doesn't mean it won't be there.
Yep.
But I'm just wondering, what do you plan to do with Tower B? I mean, for one thing, I noticed there's a swimming pool, which Tower A certainly doesn't have. I mean, it looks, from what I could guess, you plan to turn Tower B into a sort of hotel / resort / casino. And I noticed that you filed for Indian identity. So are you really going to put together a bogus Indian gambling casino in the heart of downtown Arcadia? Really?
Various board members have a decent chunk of Native American blood, which, according to the law, that entitles you to various privileges.
Native American blood. Mr. Singh is not a Native American. He's an Indian. He's not Native American.
Charles,
no, I heard his side. He says, "Oh, but I am Indian. We have a right. This is our land." What? I'll tell you what. corporate has come up with some real wild things, but this, I don't know.
Okay, well,
I don't want to
just
say it's a scam.
well then don't say it's a scam then. You
I
don't need to
won't.
say that it's a scam. Just
I won't say it's a
everybody,
scam.
just do your job. We'll do our job, and everybody, everybody will.
Everybody benefits. I did think it was funny though, seeing Mr. Singh in war paint. That was kind of interesting.
Yes. Well,
I mean,
I know it was unusual, right? But
and introducing his wife Jamala as a squaw. Really?
all right, that's gonna do it for the pre-show, everyone. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Stay tuned for the full episode where I'm gonna read a lot of your comments on the Pizzagate.
You bet. Pizzagate is getting really the whole pizza thing's really heating up.
That's right. So we're really gonna
Each delicious cheese-filled slice.
stay tuned.
See you soon.